Hello, hi Divya. Welcome to the Curious Show. How are you doing?
Hi, Anand. Doing great. Yeah, fantastic, actually. Thank you so much.
Lovely, lovely. Divya, so before we get started, as with everything, why don't you quickly just explain, or rather, tell everybody who is Divya and what is Divya up to for everyone listening in.
Sure, yeah. Divya is like a combination of, I'll say, technology and business and HR. Okay, in one simple sentence, if I have to tell you, I think I understand a bit of everything. I won't say I'm an expert or anything. I understand a bit of everything. On the professional front, for the last 25 years, I've been completely on the HR front runner. So I started sometime in 1999. Those are the days when we didn't have anything like a HR technology or HR analytics team or
Hmm.
anything, right? So I started in recruitment, was there for about 8 years, and then I realized numbers and logic is where my interest and passion is. So that's when I moved to compensation and benefits, and operations and payroll was gifted to me when I took the CNB role. So I said like, okay, fine, I'll handle it too. And in between bits and pieces, there were times when I had to do partnering role as well. So within the HR domain, if you ask me, except for the L&D bit, I have touched upon every other role in HR. And this whole experience, right, and getting exposed to all the different things helped me and said like, okay, now maybe I can get into some kind of consulting work. So after some 16 years in the corporate world, I moved and I started my own company called T-Logics Consulting, mainly working with the leaders, HR leaders in organizations to help them with strategy and design work. And anyway, now I'm back to corporate. Amagi was one of my customers, and they pulled me back to corporate
Oh,
saying, Divya,
okay.
enough of consulting, come back, we want you full time, right? This is one part of the story. The other part of the story is how tech and analytics, right? So I told you 99 we didn't have anything like tech or analytics. So whenever there is a need for any kind of automation, in our meeting rooms everybody was just turning around to see like, okay, who can lead this project. And two things actually makes a big difference. One is my laziness. Second one is a fascination when my code runs every time, even if it is the 100th time, if the code runs and it gives me the result that I want, I feel that high, right? I feel that adrenaline rush there. So I used to always raise my hands and say like, hey, I'll take this project on automation. After some time, it just landed on my desk. So that's how the journey into technology and analytics happened. So wherever I saw some monotony in whatever people were doing, repetitive, same thing, and they're spending a lot of time and all, I used to go and see like, hey, how can I automate? So slowly I started writing macros and codes in Excel, Visual Basic, and then started building Excel applications. That actually just kept inspiring, right? And that's how systems journey started. Analytics, because the first part was actually reporting, and it's very straightforward, right? Reporting is repetitive, and reporting is generally very regular, frequent. So we had to keep doing the same thing again and again. So I started automating reports, and that led to analytics. And with all this consulting journey and all those things, my consulting was primarily focusing on technology and analytics, actually. And the kind of questions that I was asking, there were few observations. I felt like, okay, there are companies who are struggling, they don't know how to start analytics. And there are companies who are thinking, like, okay, analytics is all about technology. And there was some kind of a fear, some kind of excitement. Everybody, every company didn't want to be left behind when it comes to analytics. Analytics like was the cool thing to be there, right? The new thing. Any company, if you say like anything innovative or creative that you're doing, people started saying, hey, we do analytics. So nobody wanted to be left behind. But at the same time, there was confusion about how do we start. With all the experience that I had seen, I tried to put a framework to this whole thing, and that's when 3D analytics framework came up actually. So I created something like that. Then, when I had to document this 3D analytics framework, it came out in the form of a book, which is Analytics Demystified. That's what happened. In terms of companies that I've worked, yeah, I started with a recruitment firm called Fisher Consulting. Then I moved on to IntelliSoft, and then I was with Texas Instruments for about 4 years. Then with McAfee for 9 years. Then with Flipkart, I joined Flipkart to set up their entire systems and analytics team. And then the consulting stint for 6 years, and now with Amagi Media Labs. That's the
Wow.
journey.
Well, thanks for sharing, Divya. I mean, it's not always I get to talk to an author, a published author. But
Thank
I would
you.
love to hear a little more on the authorship. Like, what led you to that? Again, how was the journey like?
Uh, okay, it's a very interesting journey, Ranak. In fact, I had no intention to write a book actually, and I'm not a writer at all. So if you read my book also, you can see that there is a lot of rawness in the writing. It is not coming from a professional author. You can clearly make that out. But what I wanted is to just go and share whatever I have learned in the last 25 years. That's the whole idea.
Mm,
So I was working with Swiggy, Meesho. So these were few of my customers that I was working with, right? Mystify. Um, every time it's the same thing. The problems were similar, exactly the same, but the confusion is okay. Where do we start? That was the trigger
mm,
point,
mm.
and I was thinking, okay, why don't I do something for my customers where I say like, hey, I'll give you a framework, just a starting point, like a template. Just fill this template, and then you will have lot more clarity on how to get into analytics. So that's when the framework happened. And one day I was just explaining this framework to someone from Microsoft, technical architect, saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And he just gave an idea saying, why don't you document this? And I said,
Mm.
okay, let me think about it. And in 24 hours, I got back to him saying, okay, it will be documented in the form of a book. And that's how
Oh,
the
nice.
book happened actually. And the book is basically like, I've tried to explain in a non-technical manner, analytics in non-technical manner, and with stories. So it has some 86 pictures and quite a few boxed stories, which are like real-time scenarios, and then the concepts are explained. It is not specific to HR. It can be used by
Mhm.
anybody, any domain, any industry, anything. It's just a generic framework. But of course,
Got it.
my heart is in HR. Also, another thing that I was thinking is, especially with HR teams, right? The challenge that we were seeing is HR is understanding people is a very difficult subject. You can't put
Mm.
a number, logic, or anything like that. Like, I don't know
Mm.
if I come and tell you, Ranak, I'm promoting you today, and tomorrow if I come and tell you, sorry, that was a mistake. It was
Gosh.
for a different person. I came and told you by mistake. I can't predict how Ranak will react to this. Right. So I think,
Can't imagine that problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens is many times when the first thing is when it is analytics, there is some kind of a logic, and for human emotions, it's very difficult to put a logic. I think that
Mm.
is also one reason why it took quite some time for people analytics to start having some presence, like marketing analytics, sales analytics, financial analytics, everything started, but people analytics took some time. Even to this day, actually, I won't
Mm.
say like it is adopted to the extent that
Yeah.
any other analytics has
It's not.
adopted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but still, I just wanted to do my bit and share whatever I know, which can be used in people analytics as well. That's where the book and the idea and thought came up.
Amazing. That's amazing. And for folks listening and who's interested, I'll leave a link below. Uh, Digital copy or a soft copy, people can go and pick it up.
Sure, yeah.
But coming
Thank
back,
you.
sure, Divya. So, see, I mean, just for context for you, the entire reason of me doing this is just that I want experts such as yourself to come in and share knowledge, right? Because the folks listening in, especially the ones who actually listen in through the end, while that's a very tiny percentage, are they're genuinely interested, right? And there ain't many avenues where you can actually get very depth and spend time on topics, and that's the whole reason, right? What I wanted to do today and have you on and talk all about analytics. So anybody who's interested in analytics, and I'm sure there are many, because I'm very sure that you've heard there's multiple people have come up to you and asked you about analytics, right? You were doing that for a living. When I was
Yeah.
back at MPL, I was setting up the people analytics and tech teams. I had multiple people come up and ask me about analytics. I was in no way an expert. I was doing it for the first time. I was trying to figure it out. But you are the expert, right? And that's what I wanted to just touch on. Let's say I'm sure there's somebody who's listening in who's a fresh, a young HR, yeah, HR professional. Uh, he or she has heard of people analytics. Everybody talks about it, but he or she is a little confused about what exactly it is, right?
Hmm.
How would you explain to him or her what exactly, in simple words, is HR analytics or people analytics, and what it is not? Also,
Sure. Can I ask you some questions, Ronak?
sure, sure.
Okay. So let's say you want to buy a mobile phone.
Mhm.
Okay. How do you make a decision on which one to buy?
I will look at reviews. I will look at price. I will look at the use cases that I have. uh, for example, like I'm an Apple ecosystem, so I will choose Apple, but mostly I'll go online. I look at reviews, I look at the price points, I'll talk to some, get reviews from my friends. Yeah.
Features. You will
Oh yeah,
compare
that way.
features
Yeah, yeah,
between
yeah.
different models.
Aha, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when I said online, I'll basically go to Amazon and look at all the features that are there, compare them, then look at price, and then read the reviews on those features. Yeah, then talk to my friends. Pretty much features. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one scenario. Another scenario which we come across in life is, let's say there are guests coming home and we have to plan for dinner. Okay. What are some of the thoughts that come to our mind? Like, okay, how do we plan for that dinner?
If I know them, if I know them very well, I sort of know what they like, what they don't like, veg, non-veg, and make basis that, or I would sort of float. What I've done is I've floated up. Hey, these are the 10, 12 options. What are you interested in? People choose, and then I'll add my own. Like, I think they will enjoy this and add more to that.
Yeah, something like we'll see what ingredients are there at home. Do we have all the required, yeah, like vegetables or spices or whatever it is, what they like, what time they are coming, how much should I order, how much should I prepare at home, all these things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Similarly, if you look at like, okay, if I have to get my child admitted to a school, generally what we see is like, okay, should I get him or her into a CBSE school, ICSE school, what kind of curriculum, how far should that school be, are anyone in my community going to that school? All these things are thoughts which are coming in in our mind, right? Very generic things. This is analytics, that's it. We didn't do anything different. We are basically
Okay,
trying to
that's
get all
interesting.
the information, connecting it. So if any fresher coming to me and asking, "Hey, what is analytics?" and say, "This is analytics." Day in and day out, any decision that we are taking, the decision is based on certain facts and certain information that we have, some context that we have. Combining all those things, we are coming up with some ideas and making the final decision. That's all is analytics. So the same approach, we just have to use it in a corporate setup also. Starting from the time I'm hiring somebody, uh, somebody might come and say like, hey, I want to hire 4 software engineers or four, let's say, senior software engineers. If I start asking questions like, hey, why do you want to hire from outside? I see that you already have overpopulated software engineers. Maybe we can promote somebody here instead of going to the external market. Or we might say like, hey, some other team has extra senior software engineers, so why don't we bring them in here? You're looking at all these things. Or you can say like, already you're overpopulated with SSE. Why are you again going and asking for it? Or you can say like, hey, this is the timelines that we are working on. These are my project timelines. I don't see a reason why we need extra people here. If we are asking these questions and driving them towards the decision making, that is analytics first. So anybody who comes and asks me, I'll say keep everything else aside actually. This constant thinking and connecting the dots that is happening in your mind is analytics.
Interesting. But then why is it, why do we always equate it to numbers?
Yeah, that is the myth actually. So this was one of my observation when I came up with the framework actually. It's not about numbers, it is not about technology. It is a lot more actually. So if you ask me actually, if anybody in this world, if you go and ask them, are you an analyst? They should ideally say, yes, I'm an analyst. The domains are different. Somebody might be an analyst in the kitchen. Somebody is an analyst in the finance world. Somebody is an analyst in the people world. But every single human being is an analyst in their own way.
Hmm.
This
Yeah, because we
numbers
make
and
decisions, right? Yeah.
exactly, this numbers
Hmm.
is thing is a myth actually. So first thing we have to do is make them come out of this myth and look at things very differently when we say analytics. Basically, don't have fear for analytics. Actually, it's a very, very simple thing. We do it day in and day out. It's just that we have not put a heading saying, okay, I'm analyzing how much salt I have to put into the curry. That's all. I'm not putting a heading, but I am doing it.
Understood. Got it. But let's say, okay, real life, right? In our HR world, uh, as we all very well know, getting our CEOs or CFOs to loosen up their purse is a little difficult, right? You have to make a lot of justifications on why you're doing this. And I have heard this, right? I've heard this that there have been people who understand analytics, and I'm going back to a numbers based and a dashboard based analytics. People have done that, but then a time comes when you want to get a new tool, right? Or you want to invest, you want to especially hire, get a analytics person, even an intern into the team, but business shoots it down because you can't really make a justification behind business. What's the ROI for it, right? In your experience, how, let's say again, same thing. There's a young HR, right? Taken up a couple of courses, has a propensity for numbers, done things by himself or herself, but there's limitations that that person has, wants to hire somebody from outside or get a tool. How do they convince their stakeholders that it's, let me, invest in this, because there's obviously reasons for it. How
Hmm.
would you go about this, or how have you seen this play out?
So first thing is to understand the company and the leader, Ranav. It's all about what is the culture I have in the company. Actually, when we get into my 3D analytics framework, I definitely want to take the
Okay.
listeners through the framework. And this
Sure.
is the first thing actually. There is a dimension called thinking analytics. So for that thinking, a lot
Okay.
of things has to be looked at actually. The culture, the beliefs, the values, the preparedness. How are the leaders looking at data? So, at a very high level, there are two kinds of leaders, I would say. There are lots, but at least from an analytics point of view, let's say there is a very objective leader and there is a very subjective leader. Objective leader is someone who will look at logic for everything. It is more zeros and ones, black and whites, looks at data, and always depends on data to make their decisions. All those things. He's someone who likes clarity, who likes some kind of a flow in their thought process. Those leaders are very easy to convince actually, because
Yeah.
half the battle is done. They understand the value of data and decision making. The other part, the difficult one, is the subjective leaders who goes more by intuition, their gut feeling, and all those things. If that is the kind of leader that I have to work with, I will not look for an overnight change actually. I'll probably be
Okay.
a silent spectator. Behind the scenes, I will keep doing my analysis and whatever I want to work on. Let's say I'll pick up some problem statement, something which is important for the organization. Silently, I'll be working on it. Look for the right opportunity, and when it is the right time, I'll go back and present my case, saying like, hey, you know what? If we had done some analysis 6 months ago, the way we would have taken some decisions would have been slightly different. There are these patterns and there are these insights that we can draw from the analysis that we are doing. This again will not change. It's a personality change. It won't happen in one go. But if we try this couple of times, slowly we have to coach them, we have to handhold, guide them, and make the shift. It won't happen in one go. But what I have seen with most of the leaders, right? When it has to be a decision which is going to impact the revenue of the organization. If I'm talking at a CEO's level, if it is impacting the revenue of the organization, they are very apprehensive about using my analysis and insights and all those things. They like it only when my analysis is giving the same answer which their gut feels is. Otherwise, they won't like it. So that is when we will have a challenge in adoption, actually. That is when we have to really sell. We have to build that trust. We have to build the confidence on whatever analytics models we are building. It is tough. It's not going to be easy. It will take its own time, but it will happen with perseverance. That's it. You have to keep trying.
So I think even if we flip it, Divya, if we can present analysis where we can show that somehow we are increasing revenue, right? That's also going to be a good sell, right?
It will be. But many a times, what happens is if we are talking about people analytics, right? Because this podcast is mostly around people analytics. If we are able to do some analysis which shows an increase in the revenue, and increase in revenue is good as long as it will not affect the revenue and decrease it or anything. We are only talking about increase, then the selling is easy. They will accept. Basically, I
Yeah,
would put
yeah.
it as the risk is less actually. If I adopt it, revenue will go up. If I don't adopt it also, there is no impact on my revenue. If that is the situation, then no problem. We can sell it. For example, let's take attrition. Let me give you
Got
that
it.
example.
Yeah,
If I go and
yeah.
tell them like, okay, I see a risk here. I see that there's a possibility of increased attrition, which means productivity might get affected. So what I would suggest is probably we have to look at this cluster of people and try and see if we can do something different for them. Maybe and study and do an analysis saying, okay, why are these people thinking of leaving? Is it because of lack of career growth? Is it because the projects are not very challenging, or is it because of compensation? Do some analysis and say like, hey, leader, I'm trying to do this change. It's not a big impact on revenue, then they will be okay. But if I do some kind of an analysis where I'm saying like, okay, um, I think the headcount in this particular team is 20. I want to bring it down to five because according to my analysis, five people can do the job which 20 people are doing today. That is when I think there will be some apprehension because suddenly 75% reduction in headcount could have a problem in productivity. Their gut feel doesn't accept this kind of a reduction. Then there will be a problem. Does it make sense? Here, Anand, I'm back.
Hey, yeah, no problem. So I'll cut out from 24 to around 23 to 25, let's say. Okay, cool.
I don't know.
So
There's no problem
which
with
from where
internet
do
this
we pick
side.
up? Sorry,
Okay. There is no internet issue actually. I don't
not
know
able
why
to
it
hear
stopped.
you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. This gets frozen at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. It's good now.
Mhm. So,
Cool. I'm not sure if when we chopped off.
okay, let me start off like this, right? So let's take an example of attrition, right? If I go to a leader and say like I see a pattern here, looks like in this team the attrition will increase, so we may have to intervene and see how we can make a difference to all the employees there and do some kind of analysis to see like why is that attrition happening? Is it because of lack of career opportunities, or is it because of some issue with the manager? Is it because of compensation? And then go to the leader and say like, I think the problem is something to do with training needs, so I want to bring in some training interventions for this team, create opportunities for them to learn and develop and grow. Leader will be fine because it's not a high risk thing. If we do it, it's well and good. It's only going to help me reduce attrition if my analysis is correct. Worst case scenario also, let's say my analysis was wrong. The investment that I'm making is not that much, right? So it's not going to affect my revenue in any case. So they will be fine with that. But if there is anything where it is going to be like a huge investment and let's say I'm going and saying I think there is a problem with attrition because of compensation issue. So I want to do a 30% increase for everybody.
Yeah,
That is going
that
to
doesn't
hit my
work.
op EBITDA badly. So in that case, they will probably not buy my analysis, right? So it's all about how much of risk appetite they have and how much of confidence they have on our analysis. So we have to gradually do it there. Analytics is not going to come overnight for sure.
Got it, got it. And luckily, I've been blessed with leaders who are always very numbers forward. So I haven't had to fight this because they themselves wanted numbers, and that's an easy sell. I think just when they love numbers,
Yeah.
you just show them very quick ROI. It's an easy sell. Cool. Let's say we've got the green light, right, from our leaders, from whoever it is, and I am this young HR fellow, super excited, want to start analytics, want to set up analytics at my firm. Uh, Very simply, how do I go about this? What are my first steps? How do I do this? I think that's where your framework comes in.
Yes, exactly. Uh, can I just share my screen and talk about the
Yeah,
framework?
of course,
That
of
will
course.
be easy.
Sure.
Just give me a second. It's still loading.
Yes. Perfect. Can see.
Can you see it, right? Okay. So this is where the framework comes into picture, right? It basically talks about three dimensions. That's why it is called 3D analytics framework. So in very simple words, when we talk about analytics, there are three things that we have to do. One is to start thinking analytics. So that's where I was giving those examples of how do we buy a mobile phone, how do we make a decision on dinner. So that is the thinking part of the analytics. So that's the first dimension. We will go into the details. The second dimension is about once I have the thinking, how do I actually go about doing the analysis? Okay, fine, I know that, okay, I have all this data and all those things, but how do I actually connect this data and draw some insights out of it? How do I create some kind of a storyline? How do I understand the patterns from the information that I have gathered? That is all about the doing part of it. Of course, the final one, presenting analytics, is super important. I can do everything, but if I don't know how to tell my story to my stakeholders, I'm not going to gain anything out of the analytics, and there's absolutely no impact, right? So, in simple words, this is 3D analytics framework. It talks about the three dimensions. So if you just go into the first dimension, I'll probably not spend too much time, but I'll quickly bring out the main topics. If someone is interested, they can definitely reach out and I can share more. So when we talk about the first dimension, how do I think analytics? From a corporate side, there are four things that I should understand. So from a people side also, right? If I'm doing people analytics, I should really know that how matured is my organization when it comes to objective setting. So why is this important? Because any analytics has to end with some kind of a hypothesis testing or a decision making or some end result. I will be able to do that end result only when I know in the first place what I'm trying to achieve. That is my objective. Otherwise, it is like shooting in the dark. So for analytics, the first thing is to know what am I trying to do at all. That's the first thing. Second thing is all about analytics readiness. While I might have everything that I am interested to do, like I'm saying, okay, objectives are there, there is clarity, I know what to analyze, everything. Am I even ready for analytics? Because I might want to do all these things, but if I don't even have data, then it doesn't make any sense. That is the readiness part of it. The third one is about data and governance. So one is I have data. What is the quality of that data? And one thing which many people probably don't give a lot of importance to is the governance of data. How am I collecting data? How am I distributing data? How am I ensuring there is no data loss? How am I ensuring there is no data leakage? How am I ensuring that only the right people have access to this information? All that governance is super important. And the last thing is in this dimension is cost appetite. Is my organization ready to invest at all? While I might have the objectives, I might be ready for analytics, I might have all the data and governance, but how much is my organization ready to invest? Best part about analytics is wherever you are, we can do analytics actually. The degree of analysis will change, that's it. If I'm at the lowest of all these things, I will do one kind of analysis. If I'm at the highest of all these things, I'll do a different kind of analysis. So that's the best part about analytics. So if someone asks me like, okay, how do I figure out what is the maturity of my organization in each of these elements in this dimension? We can like quickly go through like a small questionnaire here, right? So when it comes to objective settings, basically like what I was telling, uh, does every employee understand the goals? Do they know how much time and effort is required? Do they have they done like a SWOT analysis? Are teams more like self-managed? They work collaboratively. They align with the company goals. Is there continuous evaluation and evolution and things like that? So quickly, if we can put a tick mark against all these things, if it is one tick, then my score is one. If it is five ticks, then my score is five. So this is the first element. Similarly, in analytics readiness, it is like, okay, are we using data and reports analytics at work today? Do we know what to expect from an analytic solution? Do we understand the boundaries and limitations of analysis? And are most decisions today taken based on the analysis and insights that we are drawing? And is data treated as a corporate asset? So we'll put a similar score like that, like how we spoke last time. So on the data and governance, like are there established processes? Is data of high quality? Is it refreshed periodically? Are we removing all the bad data out? Are we collecting data properly? Are there guidelines on who gets access and all those things? We do a scoring. So on the cost appetite side, right, are we aware that analytics can start at zero cost also? Do we know that the expenses can increase over a period of time? And are we planning our investments also gradually? So today I might start with zero, but as my analytics matures, probably next year I might ask for slightly additional tools which will make my analysis better. So do we have that kind of a mindset to basically the budgetary plan? And do we know exactly like, okay, what do I want to do today? What do I want to do after 1 year? And accordingly, the cost investment for that. If you try to put all these ticks and count the number of ticks, right? So let's say if my total points are between 0 to 4, I would say organization in terms of analytics maturity is at an ad hoc stage. So it is still at an unplanned, unstable environment, and solutions are generally short term and for immediate use. Someone who is getting a score of say 17 to 20 basically is like they are at a strategic stage. So where a lot of things are like the teams are really empowered, there are autonomous structures, everybody understands their roles and responsibilities, their impact, what they're contributing, everybody strives for excellence. There is a lot of interest in innovation, there's flexibility, fungibility in approach, there is a lot of openness. That brings us to the strategic stage, right? So these four elements will kind of tell me like, is my organization at what stage are we ready for a analytics project? The second part of this dimension is to understand like, hey, what do I want to do actually? So this I'll go with the very standard thing. We see descriptive analytics, which is basically like reporting of what happened and what is happening. Diagnostic, to ask questions like, okay, this happened, but why did it happen? Predictive is talking about, okay, if we continue like this, what do I predict for the future? And prescriptive is, okay, if I see a red alert somewhere, can I go and prescribe and saying, hey, I see a red alert, so I think we have to make these small changes somewhere here so we don't get to that situation. So there are two parts right now. I understood who am I as an organization, and with this slide we got to know like, okay, what do I want? If you bring the two together, this is one table which I really love, Ronak. This will give clarity to anybody saying, okay, what can I do? So if I am at an ad hoc stage and if my asks are on the descriptive analytics, no problem at all. It is achievable. Just begin your journey. But if I'm at an uh, uh, ad hoc stage, But if I'm asking for prescriptive analytics, please know that it's a very, very distant dream. You have a journey, long journey, and you have to take it. Or let's say I'm at a strategic stage, very matured as an organization, and I'm asking for some descriptive analytics, some reporting. It's a cakewalk for you. You don't have to worry at all. If I'm at a strategic stage and I'm looking for prescriptive stage, the true analytics maturity comes here actually. Bingo, you are in the right place at the right time. This is where the analytics can actually wear their hat and be all creative and do the best for the organization. This is like the green field for an analyst. So this is all about thinking analytics. When it comes to doing analytics, I would say this is where the science of analytics comes into the picture. So in this, we are talking about four
Mm-hmm.
different elements. Whenever we say analytics, it's not just about technology. It is to have a very good understanding of statistics and psychology because we are all dealing with people and the emotions, the mindset, and all those things. It's important to understand that. It's important to understand the market. It's not just about the 10 people who surround me, but it is about the larger population, and that's where the market intelligence. And of course, we can't do anything on paper and pen. So we need the support of technology, and that's where the science of technology comes in. If we quickly try to go inside each of these things, we were seeing like, okay, what do I want, right? So when it comes to statistics, and if I'm looking for some descriptive analytics that I'm doing, typically what people do is they are basically asking me to use some basic statistical operations only. It's like mean, median, mode, range, percentile, these kind of things. As they move to diagnostic, they will start bringing in the variance, the standard deviations, skewness, kurtosis, those kind of things. When I get to predictive analytics is when I start bringing correlation, regression, some clustering, decision trees, forecasting models, probability theories, and all. And when I go into the prescriptive, that is when I simulate things. I do hypothesis testing. I'll say like, okay, what if analysis? What if this? If I change, let's say the head count of this team, how will this impact? What if I bring in some additional training needs? What will happen? What if I change the compensation? What if I change the equity that I'm giving to people? What if I change the manager? All this simulation will start happening in the prescriptive analytics side. For all these things, statistics will be really required, the science of statistics. So next, if we go into the psychology part of it, because everything is about people, in descriptive analytics, there are no major psychological techniques that we use or anything. But when we start going into the diagnostic analytics, that's when some of the popular psychological theories will come into the picture, right? And basically people related theories. That's the diagnostic part. And when we start going into the predictive, we'll start bringing in like
So,
behavioral
what
data
would be an
science.
example of this, Divya?
Which one? The diagnostic one?
Divya, so what would be an example of the psychology? I'm not able to relate to that.
Okay, so let's look at an example like this, Ranat. What happened during COVID? That's the best thing, right? Everybody was constrained and they had to stay at their house, right? And as soon as we are out of COVID, people were free to move around. See what is happening to the travel industry.
Mm-hmm.
You go anywhere, there is a lot of crowd. There is like revenge travel that is happening. This is psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say like during COVID also, right? Uh, there is one
Okay.
analysis which says that the sale of tissue papers went up like anything in some countries. The reason being people didn't know whether the shop will be open tomorrow or not, right? So they started purchasing more than what they need actually. So this is the psychology of people. We need to understand this actually. Or from a people context, let me tell you. There is one theory which says like long back, right? Some 50 or 100 years ago, usually salaries were paid on a weekly basis and it used to be on Fridays. So there is somewhere this happiness quotient is high on Fridays because they were getting their weekly salary. Even to this day, for whatever reason it may be because okay, the weekend is coming or something like that. We say like okay, Friday is the most happiest day for more people. And now when we have to release launch an employee satisfaction survey, if someone is going and saying, okay, I'll launch it on a Friday, probably it's not a good decision because you're actually influencing their thoughts on a Friday. Or let's say
Oh,
like,
I never
okay,
thought
I
of that.
just, yeah. Or let's say if I just give a promotion to somebody and within a week I'll go and say like, okay, can you fill this my voice survey for me? We are basically influencing their thoughts, right? So having this kind of a knowledge is very, very important actually. Trying to see like, okay, am I
Got it.
influencing their decision? What's the environment I'm in? And yeah, when we start moving forward, this behavioral data science and all these things will come. And then uh, Google had this Humo, I think, right? That's the tool they had basically to nudge and direct human behaviors as they need and all. This is all based on understanding human psychology. So that's where the techniques will come into the picture. On a market intelligence front, it's more like, okay, don't just look at your internal data, get to the surveys, get to market reports, do some focus group discussions, personal interviews, and then start doing some lab and field experiments outside of your company to see if we can get some intelligence out of it. And on the technology front, yeah, when we start very, like I was telling you, right, analytics can be done with zero cost also. So for that zero cost, if I'm only doing descriptive analytics, I can do it on Google Sheets, Microsoft Excel, anything. I don't have to pay anything extra. If I want to do diagnostic, that is when I'll slowly get into some kind of coding, VBA, Google Script, and all those things. Slightly advanced versions, but still I'm not, I don't have to spend a lot of money. And when I get into predictive analytics is when I will start looking at, okay, what kind of tools, software tools or programming languages like R, Python, SQL, and some visualization tools will be required. That's when ClickView, Tableau, Power BI comes into the picture. If we want to do
Got it.
further advanced thing, that's when the Scala programming, Spark, Hadoop, big data, machine learning, all these things will come into the picture. So this is all for doing analytics. So the final dimension where we are talking about how do we now I I know what analysis I want to do. The thinking has been done. The doing has been done. Now how do I go and actually present my story? In this, there are two things. Okay, most companies actually miss out on understanding the hygiene of my data. So we should have some kind of dashboard or some kind of analysis around is my data of good quality at all. So I call this as in presentation, I call it as hygiene dashboards. At any point of time, I should know like, okay, if I have to rely on this analysis, whether the data quality is good at all. It might say like, okay, so I will predict 16% attrition, but if that quality of data is really bad, I don't want to give any value to the 16% calculation. That is one thing. The other one is process adherence. Like these two are actually connected. If the process is not adhered properly, then my analysis goes for a toss. Let's say somebody left yesterday, but I actually go and change his last working date three months later. So if I'm not adhering to the process, if I'm trying to simply create a lot of stress in the process, like okay, approval flow. First it comes to Divya, after Divya it goes to somebody else, and afterwards third again it comes back to Divya for some additional information. If we are creating this kind of a stress, all these things will have an impact on the quality of data that we are capturing and the way we are capturing, and it will affect my analysis. So some kind of a monitor to tell me if my data hygiene is good. On the other side, the functional side is all like I call it as raw data reports. I'll probably just go into the slides here. These are raw data reports, right? Very simple actually. Either it's like row and column data, tabular format, simply showing like okay. So the first one here is a very raw data, line by line data, and the second one is a pivot table kind of a thing, summarized data. Sometimes when we have to go into the details and look at okay why something happened like this, I might not be able to do it in a summarized or a visual chart. I have to double click, and that's where raw data reports will help. The next part will be like visuals and trends, right? Here is where I'll start making it a little more pictorial, colorful, I'll start summarizing the data and not show it in just a tabular format, but show it in visual and pictorial patterns. So this is where we can actually see the patterns and trends and are there any exceptions, outliers, clusters, all these things we can see not from the raw data report much, but in the visuals we can understand this better. Human mind is also, it likes pictorial stuff.
Mm.
It's easy. This
Yes.
one is like planning and decision making. So very common thing in HR, right? Somebody, we have to make an offer. The first question is, okay, how much should I offer? So imagine if we have a screen which is going to give me all the data points that are required for me to take a decision in one screen. I just see it. And if my analytics tool can also give me this kind of a symbol, the green or a red, saying, hey, whatever you are proposing is a green actually from internal parity, market benchmarking perspective, looking at the top performers comp ratio, what's the holding power and all, it's a green. Then my decision making will be easy. So this is for planning and decision making, right?
Is this on
End of the
Excel or
day,
some other tool?
this one was actually done in
In,
SAS. Actually, we had built something on SAS.
okay, okay, understood.
Yeah, but we can do it on Power BI also. In a Tableau Power BI, we can do it. We just need all the data points in one place. Or yeah, this screen is not about HR, but end of the day, whatever HR is doing, also we want to understand the impact of it. We want to understand the feedback for it. So some kind of dashboards for that, right? So here I've said customer NPS, but we can say employee NPS. How is it going? And
Employee NPS,
understanding
yeah.
like, okay, it's happening domestic, international, and maybe I'll choose a month and I'll see like, okay, how has the change happened year on year, month on month, top three reasons from promoters, top three reasons from detractors, geographically, how is it looking, and some kind of a quick percentages on promoters, passive distractors, and NPS, ENPS kind of a dashboard. So these are feedback and impact will really help us to plan what should we do in the future. So this is one feedback, and yeah, data quality monitor. Quickly, I've just given something like, okay, when I say data is of high quality when it is complete, when it is compliant with all the rules and validations, the uniqueness is 100%, and the timeliness is there. Only when all these four parameters meet, we will say like, okay, my data is of good quality. So completeness is like, okay, let's say I have employee records of 200 employees, but 20 of them don't even have their employee ID in that. Then it is not complete. That is a problem. Compliance is about, let's say I'm saying I'm in Bangalore, but my state says Andhra Pradesh. So that validation has gone for a toss. So that rule is not met. That is a problem. Uniqueness is like if I say employee ID has to be a unique identifier, we can't have duplicate. If that is the rule and if that uniqueness is not there, then my data quality is not. Timeliness is, of course, the example I was giving you. Any data at that point of event, it should get captured. Otherwise, if I'm doing it 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, probably I have lost on the data quality. So quickly, I should be able to see these four parameters and say like whether the analysis that I have done makes sense or not. If I see these scores being very less, I will say, okay, then I don't even want to rely on this analysis. Yeah, process adherence is
Yeah.
quickly telling like, okay, how are we using in terms of the systems actually? While for analytics, the most important thing is data. If I'm not even capturing that information on systems properly, and some kind of a governance here, like in this example, I'm saying 80% system usage, which means 20% of them, people are still not using my system. They are coming back to me saying, do a backend upload of this information. I would say that is a problem. We should build that culture where people are a little more self-served and they are taking actions on the processes. Doing any of these bulk updates once in a while is okay, but if it's a repetitive activity, then we have to question whether we are process efficient. Are the right people doing? In recruitment, we generally see this, right? I send 10 profiles on the system. Manager will come and say, like, hey, these eight are reject, but they won't go and choose the reject. They will come and tell the recruiter, you updated to reject. So this is a process issue actually. Right. So this was about process at the end. So quickly, if I had to bring all the elements together, the three dimensions and the 14 elements, this is how the 3D analytics will look like. uh, Quick summary. So this is my 3D analytics framework runner. So if someone is thinking of starting their analytics journey, if they can just look at these 14 elements and put their commentary on where they are and what they want to do and how they want to apply each of these things, I think at least 50% of the battle is won actually. After that, it's just about execution. Their planning and designing of the analytics would have been completely taken care. So let me just stop sharing at this point. Yeah. Okay. So that was 3D analytics framework runner.
Lovely. Thank you, Divya. That was like a proper masterclass on anybody who's looking at implementing analytics. I think I want to continue that the same thread, right? We spoke of those four the journey pillars, right? Uh, See, the point is everyone talks of metrics, right? When you're talking of HR analytics, and everybody wants those quick and dirty. I won't say dirty, quick metrics that they can
Hmm.
go and solve. Off the top
Hmm.
of your head, what would be those again for the same individual, right? Now that they've consumed this information, they will be in stage one mostly, right? Stage one at best, maybe at stage two.
Hmm.
What would be the metrics that you would advise them that hey, these are those ones that you can just quickly go and do it and launch it in, let's say, a couple of months.
Hmm.
Let's say this is a company where now if you're like 50, 60, 100 people, you may not even need analytics that much. But let's take an
Correct.
example of like 500 odd company which has been there in business for 4 5 years, and thankfully they have implemented HR tech systems and they have processes, but the data is correct.
Hmm.
It's in good shape. What are some of the metrics you would recommend, right? That guys just go and just do these metrics first. They are easy in stage one and stage two.
I'll give one example, Ranak. Actually, I don't like to prescribe at all on these matters because each company is different. Their needs are very different. But yeah, this is one common question which has come to me multiple times. So initially, I was never giving an answer, but now I started saying, like, okay, at least let me give you something. At least in the beginning, yeah, with all the companies that I've worked with, whenever I go and present and say like, hey, we are analytics team, we are here to help you with decision making, data insights, and all. And when I ask them, okay, now tell me what do you want to know? The first thing they ask is give me headcount report and give me attrition report. So for anybody, if you force me to tell, okay, what will be the starting point, I will say this is the starting point. But what is interesting is not the starting point, the next step of this. What happens most of the times is we just give a headcount report and leave it at this. And how do we give headcount generally? We say like by location, by gender, by department. This is how we segregate and show some charts and all, right? I would probably look at headcount in a very different way. Uh, for me, one is, yeah, this is the very basic report, but I would probably divide my employees into clusters depending on their behaviors and expectations. So if I'm a com person, the demographics that I want to see is clusters of people who are underpaid, who are overpaid and who are in the middle. And probably if I have to filter, I will go and say like I want to see out of these people who are high on equity, low on compensation, who are high on compensation, low on equity. It doesn't matter whether it is a male or a female, or whether it is from a technology department or a HR department or finance department. That is not the demographics I'm interested as a CNB person. For me, demographics is about how they are paid. For a training person, demographics is all about the skills and competencies. That is how I'll cluster my people. I think
Correct.
any analyst should
Understood.
actually start looking at progression like this in one simple topic of headcount.
Understood. That's where the thinking comes in, right? You know what exactly you want,
Yes,
and then you were able to make cuts and present the data even for your consumption of a presentation, whatever it be.
exactly, exactly. So
Got it.
everything has to
Got it.
be tuned to the audience, right? But you see most companies, they just have one headcount report which everybody has to use, but that doesn't help.
Got it. Okay, since we are talking of attrition, this is just something that came to me, and it's
Mhm.
something that I've also struggled with. See, attrition is, of course, attrition is the holy grail of it, right? Everybody has it, and as they should, right? But attrition is pretty much the way we look at it, way we present it. It's a lag metric, right? It's
Yeah.
happened, and then we are looking at it. How do you convert that into a lead metric, right? How can you? I'm not saying predicting attrition, but is there any way
Mhm.
that you've seen that you can actually make attrition into a lead metric, so you're able to point to attrition?
Okay, my take on attrition prediction is slightly different. Okay, the challenge that we see with attrition analysis is we always look at it mathematically. So we see that, okay, in the, let's say, last 12 months, this is the pattern that I'm seeing, more or less. We see some 8 to 10% of people are leaving. So I try to just extrapolate and say, like, okay, in the next 6 months, also probably 9% people will leave. Most of the times, this is how we are doing predictive analytics on attrition, right? Early warning signal and all. I would look at it differently,
Yeah,
Ranak. I would actually
yeah,
do attrition analysis as sentimental analysis. I will not care about the patterns much, the past patterns much. That is probably one line of indicator. But for
okay,
me, the biggest indicator is, let's say we have these chatbots now, right, which can actually go and ask questions to
yeah,
employees and get to understand their emotions. The way an employee is responding is a better indicator of whether he or she will stay than the past attrition percentages. So if we can come out of this mathematical analysis and move towards sentimental analysis, attrition will definitely get better. The prediction on attrition will definitely get better. We are seeing it actually in Amagi itself. We have introduced chatbots and to understand we call it as happiness index. How happy is our employee? So it's working beautifully. Clearly my chatbot is coming and telling me like, hey, I reached out to 100 people and these are the 5 people who look like they're going to be disengaged, so why don't you just go and talk to them? And we are able to go and immediately connect with them and understand what is happening and then take any actions that we have to. There is no predictive attrition based on the past trends when it comes to early warning signals in Amagi. We don't do that at all, and it is working beautifully.
uh, so follow-up question to that: how is the chatbot able to understand this? Is it how the person is writing, not writing, or what they are saying? How's that work?
This is where the psychology part of doing analytics comes into picture, right? The human psychology. It is reading through the English. It is trying to understand the degree of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. And it's not like one question. There are like 20, 30 questions that it is going and asking them. And each question is not like a standard survey question. Based on the response I give, my next question is picked up by the chatbot.
Acha.
So behavior science here is super important, Ranak. That's why many times we just ignore the psychology part. If we can use that effectively, this can actually help us greatly in predicting attrition. So actually, these chatbots are like a
Amazing. I've
classic
heard this.
example, right? Chatbot is technology, but building a chatbot is very easy. The toughest part there is the psychology behind that chatbot.
I spoke to a couple of people last month. They're also using this chatbot. I think this was uh, Amara, or I forgot the name of the company. Um,
Amber?
they had Amber, correct, correct, Amber. Yeah,
Yeah.
they had amazing things to say. I'm very curious. I should check them out. I mean, at my scale, it probably may not make sense. When you're like at your scale, and both of these were running really large organizations, dispersed organizations,
Mhm.
just made a lot of sense. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, keeping on the same thread of technology and tools. While I know you don't like to get prescriptive, but again, just want to give out information to folks. Is there any tool recommendations that you would have? I mean, you already gave a bunch that you can use to actually build analytics on. But
Mhm.
any other tools that you think folks can just go and quickly use to analytics, prediction, whatever it be?
That is again, yeah, prescription is tough because each company is different, right? I will not name any tool or anything random, but I'll tell you definitely how should you actually choose your tool whenever you are evaluating different tools in
Okay.
the market, right? Again, if you are at an ad hoc stage, uh, probably you can look for tools where they say like, hey, we have some AI related features in my tool. You can use it, and you can just probably pick up whatever tool if it works. If that feature works for you, you can just pick it up. But if you are slightly at an advanced stage, I would say look for tools which will offer a lot of customization for you. And when I say customization, it is about, yeah, there is some modeling that is happening in the tool, but how can I change those models? That is where, like, if you
Sure.
take compound
Okay.
Ben, for example, right? Maybe there are tools which in the market which will come and tell you, inflation in India is some X percentage, your employees are at this compa ratio in the market. Therefore, I suggest that you give
Hmm.
8% increase. That is like the first stage where I don't have the flexibility to make any changes to the model. But as we advance, I will look for tools where I can say, like, hey, just don't look at this. I want you to look at internal parity also. I want you to look at fairness in the compensation. I want you to look at total value proposition. Can I add these variables and then see, like, okay, how can I get the final recommendation from the tool? This kind of customization capability will be super important. So as we grow as an organization in the analytics space, we should start looking at tools like this.
Fun fact, what you just said, I this time in my company I did an Excel and it was so
Mhm.
painful. It's super difficult even just for 100 people to put all of this. I made a bunch of mistakes also, and when you're making doing salaries you made mistakes and then thankfully I corrected it. I hope no one's listening to it, but I did correct it. But cool. Again, like there's so many topics that's coming up. You mentioned AI, right? And in today's world, I have to ask and get your take on AI, and especially in our world, right? In the world of HR, people tech. What do you firstly, do you see it having an impact, right? And if so, where do you think the major impact will come in
Mhm.
HR domain, HR tech, whatever it is?
AI definitely helps, Ranak, but we should know where to stop using AI. That's the most important thing, right?
Okay.
Is the one thing I want to tell every listener here is don't look at any analysis to give you the final decision. It will always give you indicators, and then we have to finally convert that into a decision which may be in line with the indicator the analytics is giving, or maybe it is not in line with the indicator also. So what we are doing in analysis, a lot of times it is still objective, but there will be some subjective elements we have to use. So it is always a combination, right? So similarly in AI also, while the tool will help us, it will support us in a lot of things, but it may not be or it should not be looked at as the final decision from the tool. So I'll tell you few areas, right? In some of the
Of course.
recruiting tools now, it will look at my job description. It will look at thousands of profiles or candidate applications, and then it will tell me, hey, this is the top 20 applications which are matching the job description. Please use it, because it even if you say it takes 1 minute to look at a resume, going through hundreds of resumes, it's taking a lot of time actually. If I'm able to just pick up the top 10 or 20, then it is saving a lot of time for me. Then that is where we have to use AI. Or a lot of times, right? Or pick anything actually. Let's take CNB for example. While I go and tell my tool like, okay, these are all the different variables that I want you to consider. If on a daily basis it is going through the data and it is self-learning and it is coming back and giving me intelligence saying, hey Divya, this person's compensation is really low and this is a hot skill in the market. So I'm seeing that if you don't do anything about it, he will probably leave in the next 6 months because of the compensation issue. If my system is able to come and give me that intelligence, at least nudge me for that, because I won't go into the tool every day, but I want the tool to self learn looking at the variables and then give me these nudges, then use it. Doesn't mean that I want to definitely go and do this for him. Maybe the person has some issues, but the data is saying that, but I don't want, or maybe that project is going to come to an end next month. And after that, even if the person leaves, it's not regretted attrition for me. Then I might not do anything for it. But the nudge is important. Or if you take performance management, for example, 360-degree feedback is a big thing today, right? So if I have to identify who are the peers from whom I want to collect feedback, instead of me going and picking names, if I'm working with 20 people, instead of me going and picking, if the system can tell me like, hey, I have gone through all the emails and all the conversations, the meetings that you are having, I think these are the five people you should definitely connect for peer feedback. Makes my job very easy. This is where we have to start using artificial intelligence tools actually. And the employee demographics, which I was telling you, right? The way I cluster people, I can use AI for that, the decision trees and the forecasting and the clustering trees there very well, actually. So these are the places where we have to really go and use
Actually.
AI. Yeah.
Got it. And interesting, you again give an example of something that we did manually. We at MPL, we went through millions, like I'm not kidding when I say millions, the Excel broke of
Hmm.
conversations and emails. And through that, we analyzed exactly this, the peer network, right?
Hmm.
And then you sort of came to the conclusion that if we had just let people choose, uh, it was very correlated. But you're right. And AI, to summarize basically what you said, right? AI should not be the decision maker per se, of course, right? It's not there yet, right? And I hope it never gets there because that means you're at the realm of AGI, right? Which nobody wants. But it's amazing to it summarizes, it nudges you beautifully today, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in fact, in analytics, while you were saying, right, this idea that you gave, right, it self learns somebody's compensation, goes to market and sort of nudges you.
Yeah.
Maybe it can do it for all analytics, right? What if you train it on a company's internal analytics and then you start training it, right? And then it comes and keeps nudging you. Maybe that's a product idea for somebody to build.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing, Divya. I think we've been talking for a long time, and I think we can go on. But in the interest of time, Divya, I want if you can just tell people like where they find you, because you've written books, right? You have a lot of content out there. Where do people find you if they want to look you up and learn more from you?
Yeah, one is the book definitely, and if they had to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn. Divya Anand is the name, or they can reach out to me on email. Where do I put that, Ranak? Is there a place where I can put my email
I'll
ID?
leave it in the comments.
Okay,
I'll leave it
so
in the description.
Divya at tlogicsconsulting.com. They can write there, or I'm there on LinkedIn
Perfect.
also. My my
Thank you, Divya.
LinkedIn link is there.
This perfect. I'll leave all of that in the description. Thank you, Divya, for coming on. This was amazing. 1 hour. We I hope people actually listen in and they've got some value from this, because analytics, like you said, so many all other functions, analytics have really made leaps and bounds progress. And as advocates of this function, and both of us have spent considerable time reading functions in this, it's not yet caught up. And I hope people take more keen interest. And anybody listening in, happy to just go out and talk to Divya, learn from her, and just go and work in this space, because it's a net positive. If this space wins, right, that's pretty much all that we want. thank you, Divya, for
Thank
coming
you.
on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ranak. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity because I really look forward to share whatever I have learned. I'm sure the kind of problems all of us are facing, the challenges, the starting point difficulties are more or less the same. Yeah. So if I'm able to help
Mm.
someone think through and give a direction to their journey, I'm really happy. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share. Really appreciate it. And really, all the very best, Ranak, very noble cause, and you're doing a fantastic job. Actually, you are helping lots of people out there.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you for those kind words. Bye bye.
Bye bye. See you.